Hello and welcome to another episode of the Virtual Engagement Ideas Summit. And our special guest today joins us from Boston, Massachusetts, Jason Meier. It's good to see you. It's good to see
Hey,
you.
thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. I'm going to read a little bit about your bio so everyone knows and can put it into context of what a brilliant person you really are. Jason Meier is the Director of Student Engagement and Leadership at Emerson College. He's been involved in both ACUI and NACA, where he has served as the Summer Institute Coordinator, Chair of the National Volunteer Development Team, and currently serves on the Live Events Action Group. Action! He's been featured panelist at South by Southwest and was supposed to do it again this year for South by Southwest EDU in March, but COVID happened, and here we are on Zoom.
Yep, we got COVIDed.
Yeah, and our goal, our mission today in our conversation is to really think about how we can make our fall semester great in spite of a global pandemic, right? And you are very much an advocate for art.
Yeah, need to.
And can you talk to me a little bit about why you think art is so important on campus right now?
Well, art documents our time, right? And so if we can help students navigate what it means to share our experiences, right? It not only helps them process, but it gives other people an outlet to process with them so that they can kind of navigate what's happening in this time, in this moment, what it feels like, what it looks like. It's a time capsule, it's a processing unit, and it's a skill. Developing art, creating art, whether it is theatrically based, whether it is putting together music, whether it is filming a TV show or a movie, gives people a snapshot into what we're experiencing right now. So art has never been more valuable and more important. And COVID-19 has made the creation of art especially challenging. So if we can help our students navigate what that means, it's just a win all around.
Right. As you said, a document of our snapshot in time. I mean, would you also say that like a well thought out social media post with a video or a TikTok falls into that category?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A good Insta post takes time and effort, right? You can
Yeah.
fire off a tweet pretty easily, but it doesn't necessarily get any traction.
Yeah.
Something that is created with intent and with
Right.
purpose, right, has a far better reach.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm especially, I think, intrigued by the possibilities on TikTok. There's some really cool stuff that people have been doing with
Yeah.
stop motion animation or special effects. Like there's some outstanding filmmaking happening on TikTok.
Yeah. And you're active on social media as well.
Apparently, that's what I hear.
Tell me about some of the things that you're doing to push the football down the field, as they say.
Where do we want to start? Do we want to start on campus? Do we want to start?
Well, let's start big, like maybe your podcast. Um,
Yeah. So I'm one of four members of Humans of Higher Ed, which is a satirical look at higher ed and in particular student affairs and
yeah.
its impact on college campuses. And we primarily started just on Facebook telling really bad jokes and sharing really bad memes.
Yeah.
And we've since branched out to Twitter and Instagram. And I think when COVID-19 hit, we were like, well, we have spare time. Let's expand this a little bit. So we started podcasting. So we release an episode once a week. And lately, we've been kind of skewing away from COVID-19 and doom and gloom. It's been really important to us to focus on some level of joy and camaraderie
Yeah.
and just really being in the moment and using it as an example to lift each other up. Last night, we taped a new episode and randomly pulled a stranger from Instagram into the podcast. And it was probably the best 20 minutes of my day.
Oh wow.
Just a super fun opportunity to connect with other people with the shared experience of all working on college campuses. So while it may be
Right.
frustrating, I think there's more joy in helping each other and helping our students and really lay the groundwork for other people to go and be successful. And hopefully we, while being snarky and sarcastic, we're still able to share a little bit of that.
Right. Are you still keeping the snarky and sarcasm in all the podcasts?
Oh, you know we are. I have no other ability but to be snarky, snipey, and a little
Yeah,
sarcastic.
right.
Snarkastic. That's a word
That's
now. Snarkastic.
sarcastic. I love it. All right, so now we're that's big picture. Now let's bring it down to campus. What's happening with you on campus? How are you convincing your students that virtual engagement is an important part of their next semester?
Well, I think you have to thread the needle slowly.
Hmm.
So we've been doing reopening work since April.
Yeah.
Uh, we were a very early campus to close. So Harvard announced that they were closing very early in March, and we followed suit just a few days after.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we've been about 2 weeks ahead of the national trends, just because we were so early in that kind of process. And that's allowed us to have conversations a little more quickly with our students. So I call it threading the needle. And I've been working on threading the needle with our clubs and organizations on the importance of virtual engagement since
Right.
March.
Hmm.
And it's coming to fruition now in some really profound ways. We've been doing open focus groups every Thursday night since May. I've been meeting with student organization clusters once a week since June. It's just been constant conversation even before we set policy. So before a single policy was set, we'd throw out questions, we'd throw out ideas. What does it mean to be socially distant? What does it mean when your meeting rooms are so small and you may not be able to fit your entire club in a meeting room? I've
Hmm.
got 2 clubs on campus that are over 600 members.
Oh, no kidding.
In a normal year,
Yeah.
we don't have a venue where they can fit,
Right.
right? And so having to challenge them about what does 6 feet apart look like? What does it mean when the largest meeting space that we have is barely over 800 square feet? And how is that going to impact
Yeah.
you? And watching them come to these decisions on their own and then set policy based around that, I think has really created buy-in. I also will say I feel pretty lucky in that I'm able to set policy. And
Hmm.
so luckily, the administration at the institution has empowered me and deputized me to do what is best for the safety and security of our students. And so as we lead them in that conversation, as long as community care is at the forefront, they've been fast to come along.
Yeah. I want to talk more about your students and your encouragement of them on the virtual platform. Um, because I've been on a lot of meetings with a lot of students who are having trouble just showing up and ready and prepared. So is that part of your dialogue with them of just preparedness to present yourself on the virtual platform?
Yeah, so a big part of the conversations that we're having is that of art in our moment in time, right?
Yeah.
So we are existing in a COVID-19 landscape, and we can't operate as if we are in fall 2019. Likewise, our students have to understand that they are entering an internship market and a job market that has been impacted by COVID-19. And
Yeah.
so if you're a December graduate and you're trying to enter the job market and you have no skill set in working remotely or the virtual world, now's the time to learn it. In our student organizations and our opportunities to engage virtually have never been more important. Starting to treat our clubs and organizations as businesses and our leaders as project managers,
Yeah.
in learning to facilitate teamwork remotely and virtually gives them these soft skills that we as a field have been talking about for
Right.
years, right? So, going back to like the NACE core competencies that employers are looking for, now is the perfect time to develop them. And what I keep saying to our film students in particular is if you can learn to run a virtual set, if you can learn to shoot virtually, who in Hollywood right now would not want to hire you? Who would not want you on their production team if you've been doing this work? And
Right.
so how do we use this as a learning laboratory to be
Right.
better prepared come December graduation, May graduation, internships,
Right.
what have you? This is invaluable time, and
Right.
choosing not to use it won't set you up for success.
Right. That's great. I'm glad you're doing that. And hopefully, for the folks who watch this, will be encouraged to encourage their students to really embrace the platform and see it more as a big picture, not as a temporary speed bump that's, oh, something we have to do for a little while, but something that's going to be a real asset to their tool belt, right? That they're
Absolutely.
when they can confidently say to an employer or to anyone really, yeah, I'm comfortable presenting, I'm comfortable meeting, I'm comfortable here in this space. So that's great. Another big picture question with the state of the world as it is today. I'm going to ask you a question about marginalized communities on campus and in the world, because you're always out there watching what's going on. You're a big part of a lot of things. How have the last few months, as you said, it unified the marginalized communities in our country? Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. To a degree, I think being on lockdown has allowed us the opportunity to focus inward on our own experiences in where communities may or may not have freedom to be themselves in their whole selves
Mm-hmm.
authentically. So I think about the juxtaposition of George Floyd's murder in Pride Month being June.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was really moved by was, instead of white gays, well, not true. A lot of white gays still were like Pride, but there was a lot of conversation among white gays about what were the origins of Pride and who threw the first brick at Stonewall. It was Marsha P. Johnson, a
Mm-hmm.
trans Black woman who was tired of being treated poorly and started a revolution.
Right.
And a lot of the community really embraced the intersectionality of the community. So Pride, it's easy to look at and be like, this is for thin, attractive white people, white gay people.
Yeah.
And what I really saw this year was a larger focus on the intersectionality of the LGBTQ population, of
Right.
right, like, what are the experiences of our Black queer community, our Latinx queer community, our trans community, our bisexual community, and how do they move through these same spaces? And I think having that time to really ponder, how do we move through queer spaces has been important. And so for a lot of people, it has brought some of our community more together. And for those who are kind of dragging their feet, well, they'll be excluded soon enough. I think it's important to scope out and to really think about our communities are much larger, and
Yeah.
those people who are still pushed to the fringe needs to be brought in and embraced in a really meaningful way.
Yeah. And I think your presence and many folks' presence on this platform that we have now, we can impact. You have the ability to impact more people that aren't just in Boston,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And that's wonderful. Thank you for your hard work, and thank you also. I want to change the subject a little bit to your first grade play. Uh, so I know that you're a fan of art, you're a fan of theater, but tell us about your first role on the stage.
Pretty much my first and only role was in the hit first grade musical Suddenly It's Spring
Yeah.
at Westside Elementary School, where a young, scrappy Jason Meier played Mr. North Wind, the
Uh-huh.
villain of the play.
Ooh, yeah.
The villain. It's like they knew early on, let's cast this man as the bad guy. So I've been preparing for this life all of my life. It's
Uh-huh.
very exciting.
That's awesome. Did you have lines?
I did.
Yeah,
So I kidnapped Sparkle the snowflake,
of course.
uh, and I kept her trapped up in the North Pole. And all of the Dinsians of the forest were embracing spring, and I was not allowing them to. And eventually, I think it all ended happily, and I was like, "Oh, it's fine." And then it was over.
How fun. So, as you were talking about Mr. Northwind, I think that you mentioned earlier that the folks who are not getting on board with unifying the community are Mr. Northwinds, right?
Correct.
They're not ready for the spring. They're not ready for the light. They're not ready for the enlightenment of what is really going on right now. So you are far removed from that character now, which is awesome. Your first cassette that you ever purchased.
Yeah. First cassette, which I paid for
Uh huh.
using babysitting money,
Uh huh.
was the album Heart
Huh.
by the band Heart,
Heart.
featuring the hit song These Dreams. There's just something about Ann and Nancy Wilson wailing on a microphone and on a guitar that
Yeah.
just was so riveting,
Right.
and still are. These women are badasses and
Yeah.
put on a
Yeah.
hell of a show to this day.
Rock and roll. Rock and roll. Okay. First CD.
First CD, super proud of this one. Ace of Base. You can't go wrong with that album between
No.
The Sign and All That She Wants and
Mhm.
Don't Turn Around. It still bangs. It's still such a great album. Highly recommend.
Is one of those songs like is would one of those songs be considered like an inspirational morning song? Like you're waking up at home and you're like, I need a little bit of inspiration.
That would be The Sign, obviously,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Are you willing to sing a piece of that song for us?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
No one needs that in their life.
But you
Uh,
are. I mean, you do have a history in karaoke.
I do. Not good karaoke, but I have a history of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I love karaoke, by the way. So next time we're at an event together, I'm going to get you on stage
Oh,
somehow.
please, let's do it.
Yeah.
I begrudgingly, okay, no, that's not true. I happily go on stage.
Right.
Uh, it's just not always the most pleasant sounding thing. I can hit about three notes.
Yeah.
So my range is about like here. And so there's a small amount of people who I can sing well. And
Yeah.
that's also people who can only hit three notes.
Okay.
Madonna can really only hit like two notes. And so that's always an easy go-to because that won't sound so bad. REM is also actually a pretty easy sing-along,
Yeah.
whether it is Losing My Religion is a pretty constant go-to. Or if I'm fancy and I want to impress people, I do a mean It's the End of the World as We Know It.
Oh wow, that's a lot of words.
It's a whole lot of words. And
A
there's
lot of
normally a
words.
moment in the second verse where I'm just like,
Right? So you add a little theatric to the performance, right?
it
Um,
is what I do, theatrics.
theatrics, they're good. All right, so let's imagine that you have 1 minute with a new advisor on a campus in the middle of, let's say, Colorado, small school in Colorado. They've got a minute of your time. What advice would you give them going into the fall semester?
Into the fall semester, I would tell them to be brave and be bold, and to embrace creativity and innovation, and to also listen, right? I think before our students can be creative and innovative, they need to be heard. And sometimes that is, I'm scared, I'm afraid, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm stressed. Let's give them that space to get that out, and
Yeah.
then we can move on, right? So we can help address those fears, those concerns in the best way we can, and then also give them some tools for resiliency, for grit, and to make the most out of this situation, because the situation isn't going away, right? So
Mhm.
how do we recognize
Yeah.
our ground level platform of where we're at, and
Hmm.
then how do we move in any direction, right? There are days where you're not going to be able to do much, and that's okay. And then you're going to have days where like you can get so much done and you'll feel so successful, and that's also okay. It's
Yeah.
all right to just do your best on any given day.
Awesome. Thank you. You're a wealth of good advice, and a gentleman and a scholar and a wonderful karaoke partner and a great member of your community and a hilarious, sarcastic, snarky podcaster, and all of the
Sarcastic.
above. Snarkastic, right? Thanks for being here today. Any advice for me, like interview tips? You interview a lot of people on your podcast. Have you scrap all that?
Rewind.
I know.
Rewind.
Oh my goodness. No, I've learned so much in the last 2 weeks just about shutting up, right?
Oh yeah.
And with some of my interviews, I've just had conversations and realized like half of it was me talking. And I'm trying so hard to just ask the question, right?
So I think one of the things that I've learned from podcasting is listening back on occasion and trying to gauge how much I'm talking versus how much I'm listening.
Yeah.
And I think and I almost look at interviewing as a form of improv, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you have to yes and everything, but at the same time, you have to be able to listen to know when your cue to jump in or to jump around is. And it's a different skill set in hosting versus participating.
Yeah.
And so I think about going back and forth on those two things. When we brought in a random stranger, we truly had no idea who this woman was. We had no idea how this was going to go. And taking a step back and letting her run was just a beautiful thing to watch, right? She was so ready and just commanded the microphone, and listening and giving her the ability to crack open that door and just burst through was really gratifying to watch. So the ability to do this is challenging.
Yeah.
And you should edit all of this in.
Oh, you want me to keep it in?
Yeah, keep it in. We also make a lot of jokes about that, right? Like, what are we editing out versus what are we leaving in? And
I've definitely made some decisions that it's okay to have these moments where I'm not good at what I do.
Not everything is going to be good.
Yeah.
Like, we appreciate polish, right? Polish is great because it makes for a good viewing, listening experience, right? And it sets a bar for a standard of quality that people can expect, but it's not always human, right? And people respond to humanity. They want to see us at our highs. They want to see us at our lows. They want to know that we're normal human beings. And it's important right now in this crazy COVID world to normalize high highs and low lows. Because we're all going through them. And if we as professionals are going through them, our students are going through them. Yeah. And they need to know that that's okay, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's okay to feel like shit every now and then. It really is.
It really
but it's
is.
also okay to celebrate, like when you're out there kicking ass and having a great day.
Right.
And so how do you celebrate both of those in very different ways?
Yeah, and this fall we're gonna have both.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have both, but our goal is to continue to move forward and progress and grow and work towards having more fun moments.
Oh yeah,
more positive growth moments. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to listening to your podcast as I'm driving around Nashville waving to people. That's what I do.
This week's gonna be really good. I'm really pumped about it.
When is it coming out?
Mike is editing it this morning, so it should be out this afternoon.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. High five.